Good evening and welcome everyone to another live session. This time I'm joined by Jeremy Johnston, and welcome Jeremy.
Hello.
And I hope wherever you are watching us today, actually please pop it in the comments and let us know where you're watching us from. And also, if you've got any questions as well during this evening session. So, like I say, we're really privileged to have Jeremy with us this evening, and we're going to be looking at the topic of breathing and running. So pretty fundamental, I think. Yeah, thanks very much for joining us, Jeremy. How are you doing this evening?
Yeah, not too bad. Thank you. Pleased to be here.
Excellent. Great. Well, yeah, good to see you again. I know we did something like this. Gosh, I think it was about a year ago, maybe a little bit longer. It was kind of during lockdown. And I think that was on Instagram. But I thought, let's take it to Facebook and make it, sort of much more interactive. So, if anyone's got any questions this evening, and we're live on Facebook and YouTube, then please pop them in the chat and we will share them. It's also being recorded as well. So if anyone's watching this back recorded, welcome. We hope you enjoy the video. And so we're looking at breathing and running. And when we looked at it last time, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeremy, I think one of the things that we'd done Run the Wild was like a nasal breathing challenge. And we were trying to get people to run a 5K with only breathing through their nose. Which some people didn't like, but it was something different to do. I think during lockdown, that was another reason. So yeah, tell me a little bit about how things been going for you in the last year since then, Jeremy. How's it all been going?
Yeah, fine. I've been carrying on my personal training business, which is my kind of bread and butter. So I do that Monday to Friday, a couple of days in London, and then Tuesdays, Thursday, Fridays, I'm based out of Henley-on-Thames. So that's been good. I've been busy, and that's all kind of back to being face-to-face, which is great. A couple of bits and pieces online when people are away, but more or less all face-to-face now. And I've been managing to get out into the wild and doing some running as well. So I've signed up for a 50k ultra marathon in May. So started my training properly for that sort of beginning of January. So just working up my distances for that, which is it's the first week of May. So looking forward to doing that, which will be my first ultra marathon, first marathon, in fact, ultra marathon. So it's going straight in.
So get involved, exactly. And actually, what I should do just before we kick off properly as well is to just introduce Jeremy. You've already alleviated that you're a personal trainer. You're a personal trainer and breathwork coach, and a keen runner as well. And obviously heading towards the ultra end of that spectrum. And you're also founder of Do More Movement, which is I think where we met really, which is what you set up to share your passion for moving and to inspire people to reap the benefits of an active body and mind. That's have I got that correct?
Yeah. So Do More Movement's a kind of side project from the personal training. It's, I guess, my passion project. So I've run a couple of events pre-lockdown, which you were very, very kind enough to come and speak at one of them. And then I've done a couple of series of podcasts as well, speaking to different people from the health and fitness world, just under the kind of premise of why we move. So just talking to them about why they move. So I've spoken to yourself, so runners, movement coaches, a couple of breathwork coaches, and a whole different range of people, just to kind of get into their passions and things like that.
Okay, that's great. I mean, I think it was quite an inspiring series that you delivered there, and I think one of the things that when you talked a little bit about yourself then, and this is what got me interested in some of the breathwork stuff, was how I suppose some of the effects that it had on your life, and I think we'll get into that in a little bit. I suppose the first question really is, how did you get involved into sport? Obviously, sport's a big part of your life. It's your job as well. What led you to that, along that journey?
So I mean, I've always been keen and active. Growing up, played lots of football, never to sort of elite level, but sort of good level at school and things like that, and club. And did a lot of running. I was one of the weird ones who enjoyed cross country every year. It's kind of guaranteed top 5 if you don't hate it, because everybody did. So that was always fun. And then in my 20s, started doing a bit of a few triathlons and things like that. Again, always cycled, bits of swimming, never particularly good, but that was always the weak link, but kind of taught myself to swim a bit. And at the time I was working in the city, in the financial services. And then kind of 7-ish years ago or so, I had a complete career change, kind of decided to make a complete switch, and did my personal training qualifications, and have been PTing ever since then. So just working with a range of clients, a whole host of kind of amateur sports people and Joe Public, for the most part, and just getting people moving, getting people stronger, and getting people to kind of enjoy their bodies and learning what their bodies can do for them.
Oh, that's so important. And obviously, like, breathing is a big part of what we're talking about tonight. You know, how did you get involved in breath work?
So for me, the way into breathwork was Wim Hof.
Okay.
So about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe, I started just seeing him pop up, kind of on my radar a bit on things like Instagram and some YouTube videos and things like that. And then I went to a workshop held by a couple of Wim Hof instructors. So it was a movement workshop and breath work and ice bath. So you did some breathing techniques, some Wim Hof breathing techniques, and then you did some movement, and then you did some more breathing techniques, and then you did the ice bath. So it was through the kind of cold therapy that I kind of got into it. And then I just kind of went down the rabbit hole from there. So I did a couple of winters going into the Lido at Herne Hill, in Brockwell Park, so Brockwell Lido, and just sitting in sort of single-digit degree water. So it got down to sort of 2.5 degrees or so, and just sitting in the shallow end and just breathing. So there's always a few people swimming up and down, but I was the kind of weird one, just sitting and closing my eyes and breaing. You
must have got some funny looks.
Yes, yeah, but that's okay. And so the cold is what got me into the breath work. So the idea behind the kind of cold therapy is that you control your panic and anxiety and that desire to jump out of the cold and run away through your breath. So you calm the body, you calm the mind, all through the breath, and that allows you to sit in sort of 2 degree, 1 degree, whatever, sort of ice bath water for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever your kind of limit is. Right. And then from there, that was a natural progression to learning more about breath work, doing some studying, some qualifications and workshops and things like that, and then getting into a bit of coaching with it as well, more into the kind of everyday side, and then also the kind of athletic, kind of sports performance side of things as well.
And just winding back for those that may be watching now live, and hi everyone, by the way, as well. Let us know where you're watching from, and if you've got any questions, please pop them in the chat. We'll pop them up for Jeremy to answer. Just like Wim Hof, I mean, I've heard of him, I've read about him, but for those that don't know, who is Wim Hof? I mean,
Wim Hof's a fairly crazy Dutch guy who is better known as the Iceman. He holds like 18 or 36 or something world records for cold exposure. He holds a lot for kind of heat exposure as well, saunas and things like that, but mostly known for his cold work. So he sort of runs through the Arctic in just a pair of shorts. He climbs Kilimanjaro, in just a pair of pants and stuff like that. Crazy things like that, since it sits in ice baths and stuff like that for hours on end. And his process is all through the breath work. controlling your body, controlling your kind of parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems and things like that, all through your breath. He's also they're about to start filming a feature film. Ralph Fiennes has signed up to play him, so there's going to be a Hollywood blockbuster that starts filming soon about him. So if you don't know about him, you will do before seeing him.
He is a fascinating character, isn't he? Absolutely fascinating. I think after I think it was one of your colleagues chat about him, Wim Hof, I looked him up, and he's had lots of claims, hasn't he? Sort of in regards to being able to control his body's ability to deal with infection and things like that.
So he's been through lots of studies. He's Dutch. In Dutch universities, they've done things where they've injected him with virus and kind of tracked that, and he's controlled his immune system through his breath and his ability to kind of counter the virus and things like that. It all sounds pretty crazy, but it's all becoming increasingly medicalized and studied and peer reviewed and things like that, which is really interesting to see as well. He's from a yogi background, so yoga is 90% breath work to a certain extent. So it's all kind of steeped in kind of millennia of kind of traditions and things like that through kind of breath work, through martial arts and yoga and things like that.
And that was, I've read a little bit about it, and that seemed to be like the whole essence of yoga, wasn't it? Yoga was all about breathing, and then it's sort of become almost more popularized with movement. Is that correct? Yeah,
if you kind of go back to the core of yoga, then breath is absolutely vital to that. Same with things like Tai Chi. So Chi is energy, and that energy is referring to the breath. So Tai Chi, Qi Gong, all these kind of ancient movement practices are basically all just breath work with a bit of movement, but the kind of key to them all is the breath work.
And you mentioned the parasympathetic nervous system. Again, for those that might not know, and obviously how this connects, I suppose, with the cold water therapy. Could you just sort of kind of elaborate on that?
So you've got two nervous systems. You've got your fight or flight, which is the one where you kind of, evolutionary wise, you see a lion and you either think, oh fuck, and you leg it, or you think, oh fuck, and you fight it. And that we get that when we're, that is a very useful state to be in. We get that if somebody jumps out of us in the dark, we get that kind of tense up, we get that adrenaline, we get that cortisol. If we're in a car accident, not a car accident, if someone cuts out in front of us in the car, it's that kind of immediate kind of tensing up and stress. So that's a useful state to be in at certain times. But what we don't want to be is being in that 9 to 5 or, the majority of the time. What we want to be in the vast majority of the time is the other nervous system, which is our kind of rest and digest. So that's the kind of state you're in when you're had a nice meal, when you're falling asleep, when you're with friends and family in a kind of relaxed, calm setting. If you're just in a candlelit meal, or if you're kind of in a hot bath and just relaxed and things like that. So those are the kind of two juxtaposing nervous systems. And we want to spend the majority of our time in the rest and digest one. And you can access that through your breath. So with a nice calm breath, you can get into that nervous system. Equally, by over breathing, by hyperventilating, you can get into your fight or flight nervous system. So you can, and this is something that we didn't think was possible, but you can actually access those. It used to be thought that they were kind of just, you had no control over them. But a lot of the work that's been done in the last few years by studying and putting, some of the claims that breathwork people have to the test, they've managed to prove that you can access these two different nervous systems.
And I suppose it's sort of like, correct me if I'm saying anything wrong, because I'm going to go out my depth very quickly, but we're kind of turning on its head cause and effect, really. Is that correct? So we normally kind of think of this thing happens and our breath goes up, heart rate's gone up, etc. But what we're trying to do is kind of reverse that. So Is that a fair?
Yes. So basically, what if you have a good breathwork practice, what you should be aiming to do is 95% of the time you breathe in and out through your nose, because that is how we were designed to breathe. That is how we evolved to breathe. That if you breathe in and out through your nose, typically you're going to use your diaphragm. You're going to breathe deep into your belly, and they're going to be nice, long, calming, relaxing breaths. So that is the state we want to be in 95% of the time. And you can practice that. There's lots of breathing techniques you can practice that, and that is what Navy SEALs use, because in that calm state, when you're in a stressed environment, you want to be able to think clearly. You want to have peace of mind that you can make rational, controlled decisions. So if you're in a high stressed environment, a sporting one, Navy SEALs, politicians, whatever it is, stuntmen, whatever it is, when you're in that stressed state and a stressful environment, if you can calm yourself, if you can calm your heart rate, you can calm your breathing by knowing how to breathe in those environments, you can make better decisions. So that's the kind of idea, is that yes, there will be times you breathe through your mouth. Yes, there will be times you need to get into that fight or flight, but it's a tiny percentage of the time.
Yeah.
It's not nearly as often as we typically get into during today's sort of modern life.
I suspect everyone watching now is just like, am I breathing through my nose? Am I breathing through my... That's one of the things that I find really fascinating about when we talk about breathing is almost it suddenly hits that consciousness. And then it's like, well, what happens if I stop? And then it's this weird thing, isn't it? Where it sits on a conscious level, but also a reflex of subconscious. Obviously, we do it when we go to sleep. Otherwise, we wouldn't wake up the next day. It's really, really fascinating. And I suppose the one sport that I can think of as well that most people might be aware of. And by the way, guys, let us know where you're watching us from today, and also if you've got any questions, we will pop them up. It's things like the not biathlon, but when they're shooting, right? So they'll stop. They've just been racing around on their skis or whatever, and then they take the shot, don't they? Have to calm everything down, which I'd be just rubbish at. I mean, I wouldn't be able to shoot anyway because I've only got one eye that works properly. But I suppose but then we're looking at running. How can we use this then for running and apply it into that sphere? Do you think, Jeremy?
So another good example before we come into running is martial arts. So martial arts have used breath work for years. It's been a vital part of sort of jiu-jitsu and MMA fighting and things like that. Boxing, that recovery in your rounds where you're super intense for 2 or 3 minutes, and then you get a minute or half a minute or 2 minutes or something to recover. The sooner you can get back into that nice calm, breath is back to normal, heart rate's dropping, you've got a clarity of mind, you can think about, you can take instructions and things like that. So breathwork's martial arts is another example, like the kind of biathlon where you need to get back really quickly to a calm, controlled state from a high sort of intensity activity. So with regard to running, we evolved to breathe through our nose. So you're meant to breathe through your nose. That is why you have your nose. By breathing through your nose, you filter air, you heat air, you take in the right amount of oxygen. You can control how much oxygen you breathe in and how much carbon dioxide you breathe out. When you breathe through your mouth, you can't regulate nearly as well how much you take in and out. So we're not designed to breathe through our mouth. You also, by breathing in and out through your nose, you typically breathe deeper into your belly using your diaphragm. The oxygen will get deep into the lungs. If you just breathe through your mouth, you tend to breathe very shallow and just into the top part of your lungs rather than the deep bottom part of your lungs. And you think if you want to oxygenate the blood. The blood typically pools more in the bottom of your lungs because of gravity. So if you're not breathing deep into the lungs, you're not going to be getting oxygen into all of that blood at the bottom of the lungs nearly as efficiently as if you're breathing just up here where it's just going to be much shallower. So for running, where obviously we're talking about sort of endurance running, we're talking long distances, 10K, half marathon, marathon, ultra marathon, and whatever, you want to be as efficient as possible. You don't want to be wasting energy by breathing in and out through your mouth. Firstly, you're not going to be getting as much oxygenated blood pumping around the body. You need the oxygenated blood used for the muscles to work properly. You're going to be wasting energy, so you use up more calories, you use up more energy breathing in and out through your mouth. So if you're doing a long endurance, several hour event, you don't want to be wasting energy. Those calories that could be used being put to good use, moving your legs, keeping yourself going, if that's being wasted by you breathing in your mouth, it's a very inefficient way of moving and running.
And it seems to be this, you've put out quite a few really good reasons, not just sort of, I suppose, the efficiency of actually breathing through the nose and what it does to the air, like you said. And that's got to be a big factor, isn't it, in running, that, the more oxygenated blood, that's what you want, isn't it? Because, people get stitches, they kind of, also this whole aspect of trying to be more efficient within your aerobic zone, i.e. that's the system which you're using oxygen as part of your ATP or the energy system effectively. So that all makes a lot of sense. Hopefully should ring true for quite a few runners watching this evening. And it's interesting, isn't it? I think just even going back to the fact of breathing through your nose rather than your mouth. And I know I've mentioned this to some of our runners who come along to our events, and it's sort of getting to do it. It's like, oh yeah, that is what the nose is for. It's almost like there's this thing on our face that we just don't use during exercise. It's like, it's
almost worth flipping the question on its head. So why would you run breathing through your mouth? It's completely, like I say, mouth breathe. There is a time and a place for mouth breathing. So the way I usually describe it to clients is, if you think about first and second gear is breathing in and or maybe first, second, and third gear is breathing in through your nose, out through your nose. Gear 1, nice and calm. Gear 2, a little bit deeper, a little bit faster. Gear 3, maybe a little bit. And then gear 4 is breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. And fifth gear is in through your mouth and out through your mouth. In through your mouth, out through your mouth. So if you're going on a long run, so if I'm doing a hill sprint, I'm going to pretty quickly probably start breathing in and out through my mouth. If I'm doing an 80-meter hill sprint, flat out, fast as I can. But if I'm going on a drive around town, equivalent to like a long run, I don't want to be in fifth gear. I don't want to be using that kind of stressful, high octane breathing technique. So there is a time for breathing through your mouth. When you're going up a hill, typically, if you're doing a sprint, fine. But if you're going on a long endurance run, you want to be as efficient as you can for as long as you can, which is why you're going to be in and out through your nose. So on my training runs, for instance, the way I kind of gauge my speed and my tempo and stuff is, can I maintain my breath in and out through my nose? So I live in Henley. I live halfway up a hill. There's Chiltern Hills and lots of hills everywhere. So on my 20K run that I do on Saturday morning, I will breathe through my mouth at times, but it will be at the top or halfway and then at the top of a hill. And then my challenge is to get back to in and out through the nose as soon as I can. So it may be that I take some breath through my mouth at the top, and then I get to the top, the path flattens, and I then say, right, I'm going to do 3 or 4 deep breaths in and out through my mouth. And I'm going to do 3 or 4 deep breaths in through my nose, out through my mouth. So gear 5, gear 4. And then I won't get back to gear 3, which is in and out through my nose. And that's what I run at. That's what I'm doing my, 90% of my 20K run at, or 95%.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because, the general rule of thumb, isn't it? Sort of, if you're training, 80% of your runs should be aerobic, nice, easy running that provides that big foundation. That's the general theory, isn't it? Nowadays, I think it's sort of accepted. So, which means that 80% of people's runs really, and it sounds like you say, there's going to be, even within that run, there's going to be a little bit of variation depending on the terrain, should be through the nose. Do you know what? I'd love to put the question to the people that are watching this evening, like, give us a thumbs up if you are actually running regularly and breathing just through your nose. I'd love to know, out of the people that are watching this evening, who's actually doing that.
Yeah, so all your kind of zone 2 training, you know, if you're sitting on a bike, if you're doing triathlon or something, you're sitting on a bike and you're moving, but you're not stressing yourself, you're zone 2 running, all of that should be through your nose. Nice. You shouldn't need, and again, this is me saying you shouldn't need, everybody's different, but with some training, with some focus, you shouldn't need to be accessing your breathing through your mouth if you're just doing zone 2 training. Now, when I do, like I say, that's my long 20k run, 25k run at the weekend. On a Tuesday, when I do a tempo run and I'm pushing myself, or on a Tuesday, if I do a sprint session, most of that will be through my mouth. But that's because I'm working high intensity for a short period. So I'll do 10 hill sprints in Brockwell Park. They're kind of 60, 70 meters. I'll go flat out, and by the end of that, I'm into my mouth, but then I'm recovering through my nose, rest, calm, and then I go again. But that is short period, super high intensity.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm just getting so Sophie asked a question whether I actually breathe through my nose. Thanks, Sophie. I do you know what I do? I do try and do it. I could definitely do it a lot more. So it's almost like I have to have the presence of mind to think that I'm going to go and do it. I think it's something that all runners face the challenge of making sure that you run slow enough to build up that base. The temptation is to hit that gear 3, which you were just talking about, Jeremy, all the time, or just slightly beyond, because you feel like you're going quicker. But actually, you know, a lot of the really good stuff happens in those lower gears. So I do from time to time, and it's almost like, but it has to be a conscious decision. And I could definitely do it more. And it's one of these things that from this evening, I know it'll be more in my head to do going forward for the next probably 5 days. But yeah, no, it's a good question. I need to do more. And Jane's just asked us a question as well, Jeremy. I'll pop this up on here. But in the cold weather, I find it hard as nose tends to run, basically. So, which is, I think, is a good point. I have a constantly running nose. Any tips on that side of things, Jeremy? Yeah.
I mean, it's, you know, the more you do it, you clear out the system. You know, often people get blocked up because they breathe through their mouth, because they're not using the breath through their nose like they're meant to. The more you breathe through your nose, the stronger the sort of muscles get in your diaphragm, the wider your nasal passage will get, and you'll get better at it. So you have to kind of work through that. Absolutely, it can be a bit uncomfortable, but you need to work through that. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. And just clear it, big, deep breaths, get rid of it. Can be a bit grubby, but, you know, no one's watching, probably.
Hopefully not. I know during obviously the last 18 months, if you'd have done a snot rocket, people have jumped back miles. But yeah, so just, maybe make sure that there's no one nearby. But well, I mean, I think that's a really good demonstration as to why it should work. And obviously, you know, we should do more of this. And it's interesting, some of the books I've read, there's other implications, aren't there, almost on our general health, on mental health, and all these other things as well. You know, because our mouths are getting smaller, aren't they, as a sort of the general view. So there's a huge amount tied up in this, but obviously we're looking at the running side of things mainly. But is there anything that you feel that would be good to add on that side of things?
Yeah, I mean, given that you're, you know, with the best will in the world, people are probably running, maybe they're doing an hour a day if they're running every day. So maybe they're doing 7-8 hours a week. Maybe they're doing more in sort of 12, 15 if they're training for a marathon or something like that. So it's almost, I would say, first of all, don't worry about the running and breathing through your nose. Think about the rest of the time, because you're spending more of your life not running, and you're spending more of your life breathing, not running, than you are running and breathing. So try and bring an awareness to your breath just day to day. Do you find yourself sort of kind of gasping, sighing quite a lot, being a bit short of breath, being a bit chesty? That can always be a sign of mouth breathing. So try and bring an awareness to your breath. When you're at work and you get a stressful email, do you find yourself again? Do you kind of like tense up? Do you kind of do this kind of thing? That can also be quite a sign that you're breathing shallow. Breathing is quite shallow. It's through your mouth rather than kind of nice relaxed shoulders in and out through your nose. Again, how many breaths are you taking a minute? Just time yourself. So ideally it should be 6, 7, 8 breaths a minute, fairly equal between the inhale and the exhale, with a little pause after the exhale. But most people are breathing 20, 30 times a minute sometimes, which is really dysfunctional. That can get you into your fight or flight. So that gets you stressed, that builds your anxiety. So if you look at people who are stressed, anxious, depressed, usually cause and effect, not going into all of that. Obviously, there's chemical issues and things like that, but often their breathing is dysfunctional as well. They have short, shallow breaths, frequent breaths high into their chest, rather than deep, long breaths in and out through their nose.
And that's one of the things, isn't it? Sort of, I know when, dealing with panic attacks, so if come across someone with panic attacks, isn't it? Sort of sit them down, get them to slow down their breathing. And so practicing this, so to get from a level where I'm regularly running, breathing through my nose, are there other things that I can do? So is it something that I just try and consciously do during my day-to-day, or are there sort of workouts that I can do?
Yeah. So I would, two really simple, or there's 3 kind of things that I would suggest. So there's 4 elements to the breath. There's the inhale, the hold after the inhale, the exhale, and a hold after the exhale. So you're in and out, and then a hold after each of those. And so you want to train each of those 4 elements of the breath. So first of all, I would say, set a timer for maybe 2 or 3 minutes and just breathe in and breathe out through your nose. Maybe look for sort of 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out. Or if that's quite comfortable, maybe 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out, 8 seconds in, 8 seconds out. But those things, the inhale and the exhale being the same. And that's called a balanced breath. That's just where the inhale and the exhale are the same. So set a timer for 3 or 4 minutes and just see how you get on. Like I say, starts for 4, 5, 6 seconds. And just nice and relaxed, eyes closed, lying on the floor or just sitting nice and upright. Inhale and exhale. See how that feels. And then you could try a box breath. So this is where you use each of those 4 elements. And again, you're keeping each element the same. So you would inhale for 5 seconds, hold it for 5 seconds, exhale for 5 seconds, hold it for 5 seconds, all through the nose. And each of those elements should be relaxed. So it should be a soft breath and a soft body. So you shouldn't be tensing up. If you find after your hold, or you're breathing in, you're doing it for too long, so just take it back to maybe 4 seconds or something like that. And just, again, play with that maybe once a day, 3 or 4 minutes for each of those, and then just slowly start to build those up. So just add a second to each bit as you go. So those are quite good things just to get used to breathing in and out through your nose. And if you start doing that, maybe, once in the morning, once in the evening or something, which maybe sort of 10 minutes in total, you'll start to have an awareness of your breath. So you'll find yourself during the day, oh, how am I breathing? Like I'm driving, or I'm just sat at my desk, I'm watching telly. Like, how am I breathing? Is my mouth open? Am I breathing in and out through my nose? And you want to start to think about, in all those situations, just in and out through your nose. So those are 2 drills: the balanced breath, so in and out for the same amount, and then the box breath. Again, inhale, hold, exhale, hold, all those 4 elements being the same. And then the final little drill you can do is just a really nice calm breath, which works brilliantly before bed. So you breathe in for 4 seconds and out for 8 seconds. So in for 4, out for 8. Again, all through the nose, nice and soft and calm. If that is too much, then maybe in for 3, out for 6. So basically you want the exhale to be twice as long as the inhale. And if you work at that ratio, you'll get into that rest and digest nervous system. So again, set a timer for 3 or 4 minutes, 5 or 6, whatever you've got. Inhale for 3 or 4, exhale for 6 or 8, and just feel what you feel. So your heart rate should slow. You get a nice relaxed calmness. You should start to feel a bit sleepy. Maybe get some sort of light behind your eyes and things like that. And those are 3 really simple sort of little breathwork techniques or drills that anybody can try. And the more you practice them, the more you'll become aware of your breath in everyday life. And then that will hopefully then kick into your running. So again, next time you run, just go out on a 5K and say, right, I'm only going to breathe through my nose, and just leave the ego at the door. So leave your watch at the door, leave your timer, all of that at home. Don't care if it takes 20 minutes or an hour and 20 minutes. See what you can do just breathing through your nose.
Do you know, I remember it was January last year, and I think most people agree it was probably one of the most depressing times of the year. We just sort of hit that massive lockdown again just before Christmas. And I remember you were doing these breathwork sessions, and I don't know if anyone online did these as well, but I just found them a complete lifesaver. It was just a moment, like probably half an hour, where I had no control. As in the sense, I just kind of gave you control to take, of my breathing. And it's unbelievable. Like, you get into these routines, and you kind of almost get to these points of euphoria. It's really interesting, but you certainly do not think about all the stressful situations. So anyone I know there's an awful lot of stressful stuff going on in the world at the moment. I don't think I need to elaborate on that, but breath work, it really, it's not just a physical thing, is it? It really is this whole, it's quite deep. It works with how it works with our mind, which makes sense because obviously, we're alive because we're breathing.
Yeah.
But I found it really powerful. So I can definitely highly recommend it. I just had Anna ask a question. Would you recommend that sequence before you go to bed, I suppose? And also which of the sequences would you recommend?
Yeah. So pre-bed, you want your inhale to be, or your exhale to be twice as long as your inhale. So maybe start with 3 and 6, or 4 and 8, or 5 and 10. I would probably do a 5 and 10 maybe with a bit of kind of experience, but 4 and 8, there's no, again, leave the ego, there's no right and wrong. It's wherever you're at, and the more you do it, the better you'll get, or the more you can kind of increase that. So I would, so set a timer for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever you've got. Just close your eyes, lie on the floor, probably knees bent, feet flat, knees bent, or if you've got your legs straight, just a little cushion under your knees just to support the lower back. And just dim the lights. Inhale for 4, exhale for 8, all through the nose. So mouth closed, tongue against the roof of the mouth. Soft body, soft breath. So we're not straining. If you find yourself straining on the inhale or the exhale, make both of them shorter. But they should just naturally lead into each other. So it should be, think about a balloon inflating and deflating, or a wave rolling in and rolling out. It's soft, it's gentle, there's nothing forced. And just that inhale, exhale, you'll get into a nice calm place. Your body will relax, your heart rate will slow, and you'll be well set. And that's that technique, that sort of ratio of 1 to 2 that's what Navy SEALs use in high stress situations. So if they're about to, storm a room or whatever, they do that. And the more you do it, you can do it in 2 or 3 of those, and you can lower the heart rate and get set, to go into that high stress situation. So it's all about just resting and calming and getting into that rest and digest nervous system.
It's a great thing to do probably just before like a race or something like that, just to kind of bring it down before you.
Yeah, exactly. So exactly, or if you're, and then, that's the sort of thing that martial arts people do in between the rounds. They get into that calm state, they get the heart rate down, they relax, they can take on instructions, they can focus and get ready to go again. So it's all about getting into that calm state, which is what you want to be in before bed, especially if you're going straight from watching telly or work emails or watching the news and all of the stuff that's going on. Just finding 2 or 3 minutes just to try and access that calm state is that's what I'd recommend.
Sleep in no time. Now, is it true that pro athletes are now starting to look more at breath work as a sort of an extra tool in their arsenal?
Absolutely. Like I say, it's been a big thing in martial arts for years. I mean, it's been part of martial art training for donkey's years, millennia. And it's starting to become much more focused within sort of cycling, running, team sports and things like that. So absolutely, it's getting more focus. It's still a little bit niche, but it is getting more and more focus, and huge amounts in sort of the wellness industry, meditation and things like the Headspace, the app, which I'm sure lots of people have heard about. Most of that meditation is just breath work. It's just calming your breath and things like that.
I mean, I suppose, without going too much into that really, but, obviously like doping and all that kind of stuff, but generally it's focused around, the body's ability to deliver oxygen around the body, right? Yeah. So, anything that we can do that's sort of obviously legal and it's just, part of training, gives us that extra edge. Like you say, you've got your 1 to 3 perceived efforts, or let's say heart rate zones, then you've got that extra edge when you then need to use the mouth breathing, and everyone else has been using it from get-go, right?
And people are always looking for ways to improve efficiency, so they spend an extra bit on aero bars for their bike, or new pedals, or new running shoes, or lighter kit. But the point is, if your breathing is inefficient, if you're wasting energy and slowing yourself and tiring by breathing, then you're leaving lots of time on the table, as it were. You can make huge strides with that. It's not overnight. It takes time for your body to adapt and things like that. And the more you do it in your day-to-day and outside of just your running, the quicker that adaptation into your running will happen. But it's once you make that change, your recovery from runs, your recovery on runs, and your efficiency on your runs is, it's night and day.
And, if people want to dig a little bit deeper into this, we're going to be chatting for another about 5 or so minutes, but if we want to dig a little bit deeper, are there sort of any kind of follow-on books or kind of reading material that you could recommend?
So there's a book by a guy called James Nestor, Nestor. He's an American journalist, and he wrote, there you go, Breathe. That is just an absolute brilliant book. Really, really good. It just breaks it down into really simple terms about the history of breath, how it's kind of come from being central to yoga and martial arts and the way we live to kind of disappearing, and why it's now kind of coming full circle. And there's lots of science behind there, but in kind of easily digestible ways. So I'd highly recommend that. Also, Oxygen Advantage by a guy called Patrick McEwen. That's a little bit more sciencey, a little bit more kind of nerdy, and a little bit more technical. But again, if that's the kind of way you want to get into it, that's well worth a look as well. And then there's a book by it's completely forgotten what he's called. It's completely escaped me. So I will. I won't go on that because
that's fine. We can pop it in the comments later, and we can pop those up there. Well, as we normally do at this point, we do quick fire questions, which has sometimes been comedy for the previous. But By the way, everyone that gets the quickfire questions, for those that are watching, don't get to see what they are before we ask them. So, but I try not to catch people too far out. So here we go. We've got 6 questions for this one.
Okay.
So the first question is, have you ever fainted during breath work?
No.
Okay. What's the longest you've held your breath for?
I think about 3.5 to 4 minutes.
Oh, that is good. Okay, cool. Excellent. I think it's more like 20 seconds for me. And how long have you managed to stay in cold water? How long were you in that Lido for?
So I think I was getting in sort of I think it was when it was about 2.5 degrees, I was doing sort of 4 or 5 minutes, just sitting and breathing. And then when it was, kind of up from there, kind of when it hovers around sort of 5 or 6, then sort of 10, 12 minutes, which is kind of long enough.
That's amazing. Who inspires you the most, Jeremy?
In terms of breath work or life generally?
Do you know what? In life, in general, I quite like this question, finding out who. I think Hayden said answer lots of different questions.
Being a relatively new dad, I will say my daughter. She's 2 in about 6 weeks, and every day is just besotted with her, and she's just I'm just truly blessed. She does just kind of make you laugh and make you smile, and so definitely her.
It's a good answer. Good answer. Number 5, will you be watching Wim Hof Superstar Survival? You heard of it?
I haven't heard of it. So.
Okay, so basically, I wasn't really aware of this, but if anyone's looking for some light entertainment in these very heavy times, then Wim Hof is coming to the TV apparently. I think it's he's got a few kind of celebrities that are going to be plunged into cold water.
Yeah, I'll take a watch for sure.
I think Gabby Logan's in there. I don't know. There's a few other people that I've never heard of, but obviously they've never heard of me, so fair enough. And then our final question is, what's more important, psychological or physiological?
It's good. I think psychological, because what the breathwork's proving is that you can control a lot of the physiological through your breath, which is and if you can get the psychology right, and I think we've got more control over our psychology than our physiology. So my wife might call me a control freak. I like to say I like to plan and be prepared. So I would go with the psychology.
That's good. Good answer. Thanks for answering the quickfire questions. So basically, these live sessions came about from the beginning of the year. We were kind of like looking at 2022 goals, and we started off with one of our guides, Mark Hadaway, and then we had a chat with Hayden Hawkes. We've also had a chat with a physio over in Chamonix. It's been really fascinating, and obviously fascinating to speak to you this evening, Jeremy. Before we leave you to get back to your daughter and your wife, what are your goals for 2022?
So big goal for 2022 is the ultra marathon in May. So like I said, I've done lots of half marathons, triathlons, and numerous 10Ks and things like that, but never did the marathon, never jumped to that. And so have done running lots in kind of my life, but the last couple of years, bits and pieces, but not consistently. So since January, I've been hitting the hills, which has been really good. So loving that. So I'm kind of just following my plan for that, which is quite simple. Kind of end of Jan. The aim was to be doing sort of 10Ks by the end of Feb 20, the end of March 30, getting 1 or 2 40Ks in April, and then have a couple of slower weeks, and then the event 50Ks the end of, or first week of May. So just doing that, holding myself to account, getting the kind of runs done, even when it's a bit of a struggle and don't want to. But it's loving the process and feeling pretty fit and strong. So excellent. Just hoping that continues. But yeah, that's the big goal for the year.
Oh, well, best of luck with that. Well, thank you again for joining us this evening. If anyone wants to know a bit more about Jeremy and his personal training, please drop him a line, his website here. I'm not sure whether you've got any space, but I'm sure people can get in touch with you and find out.
Sure.
And also, as usual, we have obviously our running adventures. So, anyone that's watching would like to know a little bit more about trail running, we offer trips over in the Chilterns, which is not far from where you are actually, Jeremy, and also over in the Alps, which is a little bit further away. We do still have some trips that have got spaces on this year. And look, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. And if you're watching this back recorded, thank you for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure as always. Next Monday, we've got our last live session for the springtime. We'll be back in the autumn, we hope. And we're going to be joined by author Jim Langley. We're going to be looking at springtime foraging. So I don't know what your springtime foraging is like, Jeremy, but
minimal. maybe better in a week or so.
Maybe better in a week or so. Look, thank you so much for your time. It's been really, really nice to catch up with you. I'm going to be thinking about my breathing at least for the next week, if not for more. And hopefully catch up for a run on the Chilterns. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Really good to see you. And thank you for your lovely comments. And we hope to see you all out on the trails at some point in the spring.
Great. Cool. Thank you very much,
Simon. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thanks, Jeremy. Bye.